Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and want to welcome the witnesses. And you're going to see a theme, I think, here on this issue of permitting reform. You know, this committee has a long, I think, real positive history of producing significant bipartisan infrastructure, and I'm really hopeful that we can, under the chairman and ranking members' leadership, do that again with this highway bill. But the key's got to be permitting reform. I think even my friends on the other side of the aisle, who, let's face it, oftentimes resist it, because you got far left radical environmental groups who love the fact that NEPA takes 10 years, because you can't build anything then. They do, that's a fact. I see it in my state all the time. But Governor, let me start with you. You know, my state, Alaska, is resource-rich, infrastructure-poor. We have less road miles in Connecticut, and we're almost 120 times bigger than Connecticut, and a lot more natural resources in Connecticut. So how do we ensure that a highway bill for the whole country takes into account places like my state or your state that have huge resource potential, but not nearly the number of roads that we need, that the rest of the East Coast has? 82% of the communities in Alaska are not even connected by a road. So how do we make progress in that regard?
I think the first and most important answer is an equitable formula that gives states maximum flexibility on how to spend their money. Secondly, I think there's two ways infrastructure gets beat up. How heavy is it, or how much is it driven on? Those are the two ways infrastructure gets beaten up. You might not have as many miles driven or as many vehicles traveling on any of those roads, but the things you're doing in Alaska are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And they're pretty important. And so recognizing that you factor those things in, but eventually I think the answer to the simple portion, the implementation is really hard, right? But the simple portion is making sure you have an equitable formula that gives states the maximum amount of flexibility and certainty.
Great. Mr. Ramirez, let me go to permitting reform. It's such an important issue. The Supreme Court and its 7-county infrastructure coalition versus Eagle County was a great course correction on NEPA, saying, look, this is a procedural, not a substantive law. You don't need 10,000 pages in 10 years. We had a gold mine in Alaska, the Kensington mine. It's now employing about 450 people in Southeast Alaska. That's producing gold for America. It took 20 years to permit. We had a big infrastructure development project on the Kenai Peninsula. It was a road. It took 36 years to permit. I think it was the world record on NEPA slowness. So I think even my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who have always blocked permitting reform, that's the dark, deep secret here. You have my Democrat colleagues, hey, we want permitting reform, we want permitting reform. Then you go to them with common sense approaches and they don't do it because their far left groups tell them not to. But I think even my Democrat colleagues now want to see this because they see everything. Renewables, any project is blocked by this real bad implementation. NEPA had a good goal at the beginning, but it's been totally abused and hijacked by groups that don't want to build, certainly don't want to build in my state. So what are the real key elements? By the way, we got some NEPA reform in the budget reconciliation bill. I really want to thank the chairman for staying on that. It's pretty good, actually. But what would you say are the key elements that I hope my Democrat colleagues can, get behind on NEPA reform that everybody in the country wants? Every Democrat governor, every Democrat mayor, I'm sure the mayor here wants it. I mean, it's nuts that it takes 10 years on average to permit a bridge. No wonder why China's kicking our butt on so many of these things. So what would you think are the key elements of NEPA permitting reform that we need for this bill?
Thank you, Senator. I'd offer two principles that I think would solve the majority of the problems. One is going in up front to have a regulatory process that has enforceable deadlines.
Yeah.
That can't go on forever.
Both at the agency level and at the litigation
Well,
court level.
That was
right?
going to be the second part. So I think going in and having deadlines for the regulatory agencies and then having an expedited judicial review process so it can't be tied up in litigation forever.
Yeah.
If you apply those two principles across our regulatory system, I think we could see a real change.
Very common sense. I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle embrace those because they're common sense. The whole darn country wants them. And let's not let some far-left groups who always hate NEPA reform drive the agenda for America. Nobody wants 10 years to permit a bridge, 20 years to permit a gold mine. And unfortunately, that's what NEPA has done to our country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.